G'day! Today I'm going to take you through the install of an Emuwing, turning this glass into this great access solution for any four-wheel drive wagon. Now we're going to start by removing this trim at the back. There's a clip at the top that just needs to be snapped. It's behind the glass, there's no other way. Now to remove this trim we have to pry it in an upward direction off of the clips. Being very careful because these get quite brittle. There's the clips. Pull them out and remove the interior trim. Now I'm not going to spend a lot of time removing the interior trim. Then we can remove the glass. Now we use this great bat tool. We suggest just call a glazier, save yourself a lot of trouble. Once the glass is out, we need to cut this glue back as much as possible, ensuring the frame will sit as close to the car as we can. Once that's done, pop the interior trim back into place and mark up where it overlaps the body, where it sticks out past the body of the car, all the way around the panel. Now we'll place the frame using that hole down the bottom right hand corner over the placement hole. Holding it in place, mark up where these bolts go. You can put a couple of clamps on the bottom of the frame to make your life easier. And when you take this away, it should look like this. So we know exactly where them bolts are going to sit when we place the frame. Once that's done, let's get it all masked up. A little bit more detail on how to place the frame directly over that hole. And this makes sure that any glue seepage that comes out goes onto the masking tape. We don't want it all over the car. It's really hard to clean this stuff up. Now don't worry about the back edge, it's behind the grille. Now we're going to clean it all up, ready for glue. Make sure there's all grubby fingerprints and dust and dirt are gone. Back of the frame too. And now we can go for a glue. Nice consistent bead, no gaps. Make sure you fill up any gaps. We don't need heaps of glue. There's plenty in that tube to do half a dozen cars. Now, making sure we place the frame correctly over that. Now that's just a guide. We do have a lot of adjustment in the door panel later on if we get it a little bit wrong. Now clamps on each corner just to pull the frame back into the glue. It's just temporary placement. There we go, adjusting. And we want to make sure the frame's nice and straight on those top and front edges. You can see that it's just fallen off the hole a little bit, but that's okay. Like I say, we have lots of adjustment later. I'm just going to fill that hole with a little bit of glue. That's hidden behind the interior, that plastic grill anyway. I'm making sure those edges are straight and I can get the bolts into these 4 holes. If your frame's too high, you won't be able to get those bolts in. Now, plenty of clamps. And we're going to leave that frame for 24 hours to dry, although it will take up to 3 days to fully cure. Now these little plastic grommets that we supply in the kit, they do need they're quite tight, so they need punching in. So I've just got that and whack it in. Now that's the frame all secured, we can move on to starting to prepare some of the parts of the car to put back on. Starting with these little plastic grills, clean it up again. Now we're going to take this glue backed foam rubber and set it along that edge. Making sure it's nice and tight in there and stuck down well. Now, cut it off to length. Now we need to know the bottom from the top. The top edge just needs to be cut back slightly to that plastic clip. Now just down to the first clip there, the first plastic grommet, and then we go on to cutting the interior trim. Now we use a thin disc on a grinder, but be very careful, it's easy to get this wrong. Cutting off those top clips. Now you can see the mess that the grinder's left behind it. I'm going to use a blunt flat wheel, very gently, not pressing down, not taking any more material off, just to remove all that gunk, all the melted plastic. You can see I'm outside of my line still, I'm not all the way back, so now I'll take a flat file and get everything nice and flat. So when I put it back in place, it will sit nice and flush to the frame that we fitted before. All the way around, clean it up, and now my hand file, just tidying it up, using the flat edge, getting it nice and flat, and a deburring tool to remove all the fluff. Don't have to press too hard, just gentle, plastic's quite soft. Leaving a nice clean edge. There's a little lump there, I'm just going to take it off of my file. Anywhere you see lumps, just clean them up. They will show when you put it back in against the frame. And now I'm going to take out where the support bracket and the bolts sit. Now the marks from before, that's exactly where the bolt will be. I'm not going too far in, 5-10mm maybe. And now I'm going to cut out that section in between where the support bracket will be. Back to my trusty Dremel, and clean it all up with your file. Leave it look like you haven't been there. Any roughness, I'll just run a little bit of sandpaper along there, bit of 120 grit that is, and just make sure it's all tidy. Looks like I've never been there. That's it, that's all done. So now we get to start putting the frame together. So first thing, attaching the support brackets. Now, M5s, just loosely initially. That's it. Making sure to clamp the body of the car. You can see the support bracket is behind the body, frames in front. Now the fiddly ones. Attaching the hinge with these little M4 bolts. So small, so fiddly. Go, getting all four in place. Only two for now, but I'll do the other two off camera. Now I've got to make sure when we've done these M5 bolts up, about 5 Newton meters, they don't have to be really, really tight, 5-6 Newton meters. Just have to clamp just enough to support that hinge. A lot of load in the hinge. Making sure the hinge slides backwards and forwards in the slots easily. Now we can do up the hinge against the support bracket and frame. About 4 or 5 Newton meters on these little bolts. The fiddly little suckers. Now the gap between the face of the hinge and the frame is about 8mm. Now we can adjust that later, so if your door panel sits proud of the car, you can adjust that in just by loosening off those bolts. You can see where I've cut. Making sure my frame looks all nice and clean all around the edge on my interior panel. And now prepping up my pan heads, making sure they're close to hand when I place the panel. Cloth over the bottom of the frame just to protect the body of the car there. Now when I'm placing the panel, I'm just using the handles to sit inside the frame. So the cam's inside the handles over the inside of the frame to secure the glass. Now those pan heads that were close to hand, pop in the outside two, just loosely. Just doing them up finger tight at the moment, and then we'll adjust the panel. So this is where most people fall over. Just take your time. Don't have to be millimetre perfect, just has to be close. handle sitting over the inside of the frame and putting some spacers underneath the door and lining it up with that rear trim. Now getting that gap between the door panel correct, making sure we got clearance on that door. And once we're happy with the position of the door panel, we can go ahead and do up those pan heads. It's starting to really take shape now. Removing my spacers and now checking for clearance, especially on that top edge of the door between the frame, body and panel. Another important check is just to make sure that you're clearing that door, so that door can open and close with the Emuwing open. Putting the other pan heads, make sure they're nice and straight. Now we can do up those pan heads. Now we don't have to over tighten these, they're quite easy to strip, so around 6 Newton meters is enough. So just wrist strength. Now we can pop on the gas struts. It's really starting to take shape. Fat end to the top. Take note which way up those gas struts are. Now, double checking my clearance. The gas struts can push the door panel up slightly as they compress the hinge, and again checking my gap with that rear door. Now, last step, weather strip. Now, using the chalk pen that we supply in the kit, I'm just going to mark up where the panel sits against the frame, so, especially around the corners there, and some little lines in between. There you go, you can see it all marked up, so I know where to place my weather strip. Make sure everything's clean, no dirt, dust, no fingerprints. Now we come in with the primer, again that's in the kit, and in long strokes, exactly where you're going to place the weather strip. Now before you actually place the weather strip, make sure this primer is dry. Give it about 10 minutes to fully cure. Now you can see where I've gone around with my primer. Now I need to place the weather strip with the lip to the outside edge of the panel. Feeding it through the hinges. Now the trouble trying to separate that. Come on, you got this, you've got this. There you go. Okay, now directly where I'll place my primer with the join towards the bottom of the door panel. Keeping it nice and close to the top of the hinges. Cutting it off about 2 millimeters over. I just want to get a really nice clean join between these two. It should be almost invisible. And don't forget, at the bottom of the door panel. There we go. Nice clean join. Now press it all down. I usually use a roller to make sure that there's no air behind the weather strip, no air bubbles. Just run it around with a little plastic roller and then clean up any chalk marks. And now we get to clean up the panel. This is where we get looking beautiful. Nice shiny glass. What a great job he's doing there. Check how I come work for me. And there we go, we're all done. Final job, clean the frame. Now I just put a little bit of cleaner on the rubber. It's a UV protectant as well and does act as a little bit of a lubricant on the first close. Got to be really careful that the rubber doesn't roll when we initially close that door panel. It's not fully set yet. Now I usually poke it up. I sort of half close the door panel and poke the rubber in at the top before fully closing the panel. And that's what we end up with, an Emuwing. Looks factory. and so convenient. Please subscribe down below, like us, and leave any comments so we can improve for future videos. Thanks for watching.